Good morning to all. Welcome to the second class of this online class from the paper Signatures, and today we will be continuing the chapter Excerpts from Memoir by Pablo Neruda. So in the last class we discussed about the definition of a memoir, then the details of the author Pablo Neruda, then some just an outline to the chapter, the word. So in this class today we will be dealing with the author's details from the textbook point of view. So all of you please bring the textbook as soon as possible, and we will be following this textbook today onwards. So in the last class we discussed about the memoir. അപ്പോൾ എന്താണ് മെമ്മോയർ? മെമ്മോയർ എന്ന് മലയാളത്തിൽ പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് അറിയാൻ പറ്റും, അത് ഓർമ്മക്കുറിപ്പ് എന്നാണ് അതിൻ്റെ ഒരു കറക്റ്റായിട്ട് മീനിങ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. സോ ഇവിടെ പാബ്ലോ നെറുഡയുടെ ഒരു മെമ്മോയറാണ് നമുക്ക് പഠിക്കാനുള്ളത്. സോ ഇതിൽ മെയിനായിട്ട് ഒരു പോയട്രി, ഒരു ദ വേർഡ് എന്നൊരു പോയട്രിയുടെ ഭാഗമാണ് നമുക്ക് പഠിക്കാനുള്ളത്. സോ ടുഡേ വി ഫസ്റ്റ് ഡിസ്കസ് ദി ഓതർ ഡീറ്റെയിൽസ് ഹു ഇസ് ദി പാബ്ലോ നെറുഡ. So in the last class we discussed that the Pablo Neruda was the Chilean poet, and he is the most beloved poet of Chile. Then he supported the Communist Party and the great admirer of Joseph Stalin and Fidel Castro, etc. Then we discussed some major works by Pablo Neruda, which includes 20 love poems and a song of despair. Then some Pain in My Heart, then Come Back, the Lost Neruda, Canto General, etc. So all these major works are which highlights the writing career of Pablo Neruda. So today we will be continuing these author's details, and we will be resuming from these details. So in the textbook, page number 10 onwards, we can see that some detailed manner of this details regarding the biography or the about this author who is the Pablo Neruda. So the turning point of his life came with his duty in Spain. His friendship with leading Spanish literary figures like Federico Garza Llosa led him to support the Republican group. He then supported this Republican group during the Spanish Civil War, and with this began his left-wing association. So this was the beginning of his life, especially supporting this kind of parties during that time. And he supported the Republican group during the Spanish Civil War. Then Neruda has horrified at the civil and military brutalities and which followed the General Franco's invasions of Spain, and which reinforced his political commitment and his later alignment with the Communist Party. So this was the change in his attitude in which he supported the Communist Party. Then he wrote the Canto General, which is one of the most important work of Pablo Neruda, a collection of poems in 1950 exclusively for the workers and the politically oppressed. അപ്പോൾ ഈ കാൻഡോ ജനറൽ എന്നൊരു വർക്ക് ബേസിക്കലി 1950 വർക്കാണ്. അത് ആളുടെ ഉദ്ദേശം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് അത് മെയിനായിട്ട് നമ്മുടെ വർക്കേഴ്സ് അതേപോലെ തന്നെ പൊളിറ്റിക്കലി ഒപ്രസ്ഡ് ആയ ആൾക്കാർക്ക് വേണ്ടി എഴുതപ്പെട്ട ഒരു വർക്കായിരുന്നു ഈ കാൻഡോ ജനറൽ. ദെൻ ദി കാൻഡോ ജനറൽ ഓൾസോ സെലിബ്രേറ്റ്സ് ദി ലാറ്റിൻ അമേരിക്കൻ ഹെറിറ്റേജ് ഓഫ് നെറുഡ. സോ ദിസ് റിഗാർഡിംഗ് ദിസ് വർക്ക് കാൻഡോ ജനറൽ. So Neruda expressed enormous satisfaction in that he could make the people respect the occupation of the poets. And in 1950 Neruda visited Delhi for an interview with Nehru, and his poetry appeared in Hindi, Urdu and Bengali. So in 1950 he came to India in order to make an interview with Nehru. Then he wrote some poems, and it appeared basically with language like Hindi, Urdu and Bengali. And in 1964 Chile's National Library make a birthday celebration of Pablo Neruda, which is his 60th birthday, by organizing a series of lectures on Neruda by eminent poets and writers. So it was one of the form of birthday celebration which conducting a series of lectures by eminent poets and writers. And in 1969 he was designated as the candidate for the presidency of Chile by the Communist Party. So he became the candidate for the presidency of Chile in 1969, and then later he resigned this post in order to permit Salvador Allende to be the party's sole candidate. Then later in 1970, when Salvador Allende, who is the party's sole of candidate, became the president of Chile. So later Neruda was appointed as the ambassador to France. Then many prestigious awards were conferred upon Neruda, in which we discussed the major award, which is the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971, and also he won some of other main awards, which includes the International Peace Prize in 1950, and then the Lenin Prize, which is also a peace prize, and the Stalin Peace Prize in 1953. So he won other three major awards, which is basically peace prizes. In 1950 he won the International Peace Prize, and then in 1953 he won the Lenin Peace Prize, and then the Stalin Peace Prize. And also the most important award for Neruda is the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971. So these are the major awards of Neruda. Then Neruda was named along with the Chaplin, Gandhi and Kennedy, who was regarded as the most outstanding characters of the 20th century. So this is this designation or this consideration is very important, in which he was considered as the one of the most outstanding characters of the 20th century. So this is another another lifeline of this Neruda. Then his political life was absorbing as the creative life. So he as a writer, he also has led a political life along with the creative life. Then Neruda's biographer and nephew, who is the Bernardo Reis, remembers him as the incredible man who had many toys. So there is a question in which who told that the Neruda was the incredible man, and who told that he had many toys. So this recognition in which Bernardo Reis remembers him as an incredible man who had many toys. So this is one of the recognition by his nephew and also a biographer, who is the Bernardo Reis on Neruda. Then as Neruda writes in his memoirs, his house was a collection of toys. So he also wrote in his memoirs as his house was a collection of toys. Then also he wrote, I have also built my house like a toy house, and I play in it from the morning till night. So he considers his life as a form of a toy, and he says that in his memoir, he says that I have also built my house like a toy house, and I play in it from the morning till night. So this is regarding his some of his writings in his memoir regarding his life. So his personal life is in which he considers himself as a toy in his life. So this is very interesting about the Neruda. Then Neruda had great love and respect for the Cuban Revolution. So he also respected, or he also in love with some basic revolutions like Cuban revolutions. So the Cuban Revolution, he says that I became the first poet to devote an entire book praising the Cuban Revolution. So he wrote a book in order to praise the Cuban Revolution, and he says all these things in his memoirs. And Neruda confesses his uncompromising stand and pride in being the fighting revolutionary, and as he calls himself. So Neruda സ്വയമായി വിളിക്കുന്ന എന്താണെങ്കിൽ fighting a revolutionary. So fighting revolutionary is a term in which he called himself. So it is basically a self-recognition by him. And then he hated the ravages of war and the hate engendered, but he strongly believed in the power of love. So he strongly believed the power of love, and then he wrote that I am convinced that there will be a mutual understanding among human beings achieved in spite of all the suffering, the blood, the broken glass. So this is also a written sentence in this memoir regarding his life and his love, power of love. Then later he said that some of his lines from this Neruda has become the immortal, in which he says that you can cut all the flowers but you cannot keep spring from coming. So this is very meaningful sentence in which you can cut all the flowers but you cannot keep spring from coming. എത്രയോ അർത്ഥവത്തായ ഒരു സെന്റൻസ് ആണ് പറയുന്നത്. ഓക്കെ, I want to do with you one spring does to the cherry tree. So all these lines were very meaningful, in which he says the truth of his life, in which you can cut all the flowers but you cannot keep spring from the coming. So this is regarding one of the major famous line from his memoir. And then he regarding his life, when the president banned the communism in Chile in 1948, a warrant was issued to arrest Neruda. So in 1948 a warrant was issued to arrest Neruda in order because the Communist Party was banned in Chile by the president at that time. So this was the major issue in order to arrest Neruda in 1948. Then he had to go into exile for many years. So നമ്മുടെ നെരുഡ ഈ 1948 കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് ഈ അറസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത് കുറേ നാൾ പുറത്തു പോയിരിക്കുകയായിരുന്നു. ഈ ചിലയിലല്ലായിരുന്നു, ആൾ ഔട്ട്സൈഡ് ആയിരുന്നു. Then he had to go into exile for many years after the death of Che Guevara in Bolivia in 1967. Neruda wrote several articles lamenting the loss of great hero. So he also wrote a major writing about Che Guevara which was in when he died in 1967 in Bolivia. He wrote about many articles lamenting about Che Guevara, which is the loss of the great hero. So this is also important regarding the Neruda point of view, about his political point of view. Then Neruda condemned the United States for its involvement in the Vietnam War. So he also participated, also involved in the Vietnam War. Then the Colombian novelist Gabriel Garcia Marquez called him the greatest poet of 20th century in any language. So this is another recognition by another major novelist, a Colombian novelist, who said that Neruda was the greatest poet of 20th century in any language. So basically Neruda was recognized as the major writer, poet, and also as a politician during that time. So all these recognition, all these writings, all these responses from these famous persons, which signifies that Neruda was one of the major character or major writer during that time. Then so the Gabriel Garcia Marquez called him the greatest poet of 20th century. Then Neruda was intimately related to T.S. Eliot too. So T.S. Eliot, we all know that is a famous writer in English literature. So he also related to T.S. Eliot, and he felt that no one understand him better than Eliot, who was an ardent admirer of his poetry. So the connection between Neruda and T.S. Eliot is that Eliot was the great admirer of Neruda. So Eliot admired his poetry, especially the poetry of Pablo Neruda. So he felt that no one understand him better than Eliot, who was an ardent admirer of his poetry. So this is also another major recognition for Pablo Neruda. So നമ്മൾ ഇതുവരെ കുറേ റെക്കഗ്നേഷൻസ് പറഞ്ഞു. നമ്മൾ Pablo Neruda as a greatest poet ആയിരുന്നു, അതുപോലെ ഗ്രേറ്റസ്റ്റ് ക്യാരക്ടർ ആയിരുന്നു 20th സെഞ്ച്വറിയിൽ. അതുപോലെ നമ്മൾ ലാസ്റ്റ് പറഞ്ഞത് T.S. Eliot എന്ന പോയറ്റ് Pablo Neruda ഗ്രേറ്റസ്റ്റ് അഡ്മയർ കൂടിയായിരുന്നു. ബേസിക്കലി ഈ പോയട്രിയുടെ ഒരു അഡ്മയർ കൂടിയായിരുന്നു പറഞ്ഞു. Then but when Eliot started writing the poems, Neruda said, I locked myself in the bathroom because he didn't want to lose the passionate reader. So while Eliot started writing the poems, Neruda said that very humorously, he said that I locked myself in the bathroom because Eliot started writing the poem. So his recognition or the consideration as the admirer of Eliot was become reduced day by day while Eliot was writing poems. Later Eliot was recognized as the greatest poet in English literature. So he says about this situation in which I locked myself into the bathroom. So this is very humorous way. He says that he himself locked like a bird or like a animal in his mind, in which his poetry became restricted or limited to a specific point of view in which Eliot started writing. So this is another outbreak in the Neruda's life. Then a lot of controversy lingered around the death of Neruda when he passed away on September 23rd in 1973. So we said earlier, Neruda was dead due to cancer in 1973, although officially it also reported that Neruda died due to cancer, and it was interpreted by many as the murder by poisoning. So there also some form of controversy during the death of Neruda in 1973. So officially Neruda was died due to cancer in 1973. So this is regarding the biography or the author's details about the Pablo Neruda. So we looked at the life of Neruda in a very detailed manner. So we now moving to the chapter itself, which is the memoir. And regarding this memoir, the memoir is the Neruda's life story as well as a fine narration of Latin American history, and it is a self-exploration of an enigmatic personality who shares his passion for poetry and politics and reveals his intimate association with Lorca, Vallejo, Picasso, Gandhi, Mao, Castro, Allende, and many others. And perhaps I didn't live just in myself. Perhaps I lived the lives of others, says Neruda in the preface of Memoirs. So regarding the memoirs of memoir written by Neruda, he says that this is not only the life experience of Neruda, it is also the narration of Latin American history, and also it is a self-exploration of an enigmatic personality who is this personality is the Neruda itself, who shares his passion for poetry and politics and reveals his intimate association with some major writers and major characters of 20th century. So this is regarding the memoirs or the preface of Memoirs of Neruda, and his self materializes as a poet when it encompasses and assimilates the many lives he met during the course of his life. So also this memoir is regarding his writing itself, basically the poetry and the articles written by Neruda. So all these things are present in his memoirs. Especially he pays attention to the importance to the basics of his life experiences, basically as a poet and also as a politician during his age. Then this chapter, the word that we are going to study, which is a form of poem, and it is written as a free verse. So the section which is entitled as the word, and it is a great pain to poetry. So it is just an introduction to his poetry, and Neruda relishes an attempt which uses the words and savors them and fondles them in an attempt at harnessing their poetic potentials and emotions in diverse permutations, eliciting and rupture. So this is regarding the chapter's introduction. So simply we can say that ഈ മെമ്മോയർ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഈ ചാപ്റ്റർ ഇതിൽ വരുന്ന ചാപ്റ്റർ ദ വേർഡ് എന്നൊരു ചാപ്റ്റർ നെറുഡ എന്നൊരു റൈറ്ററിൻ്റെ സം പോയിന്റ് ഓഫ് വ്യൂ ബേസിക്കലി റിഗാർഡിങ് ദി പോയട്രി, അതായത് ആൾ പറയുന്ന കുറച്ച് കോൺസെപ്റ്റുകൾ പോയത്തിനെ കുറിച്ച് ആൾ റൈറ്റിങ്സിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറയുന്ന കോൺസെപ്റ്റുകൾ, ആൾ എങ്ങനെയാണ് പല വേർഡ്സും യൂസ് ചെയ്തത്, ആൾ നേരിട്ട എക്സ്പീരിയൻസസ്, അതുപോലെ ഡിഫിക്കൽട്ടീസ്, ഇതെല്ലാം കൂടി അടങ്ങിയ ഒരു സംഭവമാണ് നമുക്ക് പഠിക്കാനുള്ള ഈ പോയം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഈ സെക്ഷൻ. സോ ദിസ് സെക്ഷൻ ഈസ് എൻടൈറ്റിൽഡ് ആസ് ദി വേർഡ്. So this is regarding just an introduction to this textbook, which is the word. And this according to Neruda, one sees a man drunk with poetry, reveling in its introduction. And he says that the person who sees as a drunk with the poetry, and it is like a intoxication. So the writing or the poets writes the poems in a different manner. So here he says that one sees a man drunk with a poetry, reveling in its intoxication, and the whole passage is rendered in italics and stands out like a poem. So our chapter is full of just like a poem. It is full of lines or sentences. It is written in free verse, and in the textbook it is given as italics, in the font italics. And there are reclining gods and the mask with the war and the poetry, and all these things are the three other passages. They are the reclining with the gods, the mask and the war, and also the poetry. So all these three sections are other three passages in his memoirs. So the chapter or the section that we are going to study is the word, which is a form of free verse, and it's not a poem. We can say call it as a form of poem, but it is written in a free verse, and in the textbook it is given as the in italics. So this passage is replete of with the images and surrealistic expressions, and it is highly suggestive and pictorial. So all these things in this poem or this chapter is very imaginative, and we have some pictures or some words, some expressions in order to get a clear idea regarding the Pablo Neruda's point of view while writing the poetry. So this is regarding just an introduction to our chapter, which is the word. So the word, which is a chapter in this section in the memoirs. So we discussed the author's details, and we now look in the chapter itself, which is the form of poem, the word, and it proves the multitude potential of words and his intimate affiliation with words, and also it portrays his personal and political life. So this is regarding just an introduction to this poem, and regarding this poem we can go line by line, and first of all these words can manifest the vivid expression. So this is just an outline to this poem. So we can go through line by line of this poem. So the first 4 lines as follows: you can say anything you want, yes sir, but it's the words that sing, that they soar and descend, and I bow to them, I love them, and I cling them, I run them down, I bite into them, I melt them down, I love the word so much, the unexpected ones. So this is regarding the first 4 lines of our chapter. So in these lines he says that the words can manifest the vivid expression, whether in poetry or prose, and the word sing and descend, and the poet even bows to them, and also he expresses his intense love towards words. So Pablo Neruda എന്നൊരു പോയറ്റ് വേർഡ്സിൽ എങ്ങനെ കാണുന്നു അല്ലെങ്കിൽ എങ്ങനെ അതിനെ എല്ലാ വേർഡ്സിനെ എക്സ്പ്രസ് ചെയ്യുന്നു എന്നാണ് ആദ്യത്തെ ഈ 4 ലൈൻസിൽ പറയുന്നത്. Then in the following lines he says that I love the words so much, the unexpected ones, the ones I wait for greedily or stalk until suddenly they drop. Vowels I love, they glitter like colored stones, they leap like silver fish, they are foam, thread, metal, dew. So this is the following lines of this poem. In these lines the poet says that He loves the words, and he always clings to words and try to tame it while writing. So the basic problem while writing is that sometimes he runs after words, and all his acts of life are closely associated with the words. So sometimes the words come like unexpected rain, and he waits for them greedily. And to drop down, he loves vowels and compares it with vivid objects in nature like colored stones, silver fish, and also such other things like foam, thread, metal, and dew. So he compares the words with some natural things, and he loves the vowels. So it is very important. As a poet, he loves the vowels, and he compares it with the vivid objects in nature like colored stones, then the silver fish, then foam, thread, and metal. And also he says that the vowels is the best companion of him while writing the poem. So he faced some difficulties while writing, in which he sometimes he gets so many words while writing the poems, and sometimes he finds difficult to find out some words. So this is very natural or very common while writing the poems. So he says that so he loves the vowels and compares it with the vivid objects like this nature like colored stones and silver fish and so and so. So this is regarding the second 4 lines of this poem. And in the next following lines he says that I run after certain words, they are so beautiful that I want to fit them all into my poem, and I catch them in mid-flight as they buzz past, and I trap them, clean them, peel them, I set myself in front of the dish, they have a crystalline texture to me. So in these lines the poet says that how he make the words as his own, or how he uses his words while writing the poems. So he says that he run after certain words. So to get some form of words, he runs behind it, and they are also so beautiful. So according to the poet, according to Neruda പറയുകയാണ് എല്ലാ വേർഡ്സും വളരെ ബ്യൂട്ടിഫുൾ ആണെന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. Then that I want to fit them all into my poem. So he want to fit all these words into his poem in order to make the poem very beautiful. So this is very important in which a poet collects some beautiful words, and he says that he makes this poem very beautiful by assigning or by giving these words in very beautiful order or in a systematic way while writing the poem. Then he says that I catch them in mid-flight as they buzz past, I trapped them, cleaned them, peeled them, I set myself in front of the dish, they have a crystalline texture to me, vibrant ivory, vegetable, oily like fruit, like algae, like agates. So all these things says that he loved his all words while writing the poem, and he says that while writing the poem he often runs after beautiful words to make them fit into his poems, and he compares his encounter with the words to the everyday activities. So all these things are very usual or casual things or casual activities. So he compares all these encounters into with the words into the everyday activities in a human life, and also he deals the words like dealing something edible, and for he says he cleans them and he peels them and makes them his meal. So ഇവിടെ പാബ്ലോനോട് ചെയ്യുന്ന വേർഡ്സ്, പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഈ പോയട്രിയിൽ യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന വേർഡ്സ് ആയിട്ട് വേർഡ്സിനെ കോമൺ ലൈഫിൽ നമ്മൾ എവറിഡേ ലൈഫിൽ യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന സം ഹ്യൂമൻ ആക്ടിവിറ്റീസ്, സം കോമൺ എൻകൗണ്ടർ ആയിട്ട് നടക്കുന്ന എവറിഡേ ആക്ടിവിറ്റീസ് ആയിട്ട് കമ്പയർ ചെയ്യാണ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. സോ ഹി ഡീൽസ് വിത്ത് വേർഡ്സ് ലൈക്ക് ഡീലിംഗ് സം വൺ എഡിബിൾ, ആൻഡ് ഫോർ ഹി സേസ് ദാറ്റ് ഹി ക്ലീൻസ് ദം and also peels them and make them his meal. So this is the way in which Neruda considers the words in his poetry. Then in the following lines, he says that, like olives, and then I stir them, I shake them, I drink them, I gulp them down, I mash them, I garnish them, I let them go. So all these things, or all these lines following the later part of this poem says that all the activities in everyday human life make them he considered all these things as a comparing to these words, in which all these things are very connected with the human life, especially the day-to-day activities, everyday activities of human life. So he compares it with something edible. So this is very important while looking about this chapter. So ഇവിടെ നെറുഡ ചെയ്യുന്ന എന്താണെങ്കിൽ വേർഡ്സിനെ കമ്പയർ ചെയ്യാണ്, പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് എഡിബിൾ ആയ സംഭവത്തെ, കഴിക്കുന്ന വസ്തുക്കളായിട്ട് നമ്മൾ ഹ്യൂമൻ ലൈഫിൽ എവറി ഡേ നമ്മൾ കഴിക്കുന്ന അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നമ്മൾ ഡീൽ ചെയ്യുന്ന സംഭവങ്ങളായിട്ട് കമ്പയർ ചെയ്യുക ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ദെൻ in the following lines, he leaves them in my poem like stalactites, like silvers of polished wood, like coals picking from a shipwreck, gifts from the waves. Everything exists in the word. An idea goes through a complete change because one word shifted its place, or because another settled down like a spoiled little thing inside a phrase. So all these things, all this while using all these words, he faced some difficulties. So he says that he finds the words from everything that exists in this world, and the words gather its meaning through long journeys from country to country, and that carry the inheritance of ancient culture and history. In the following lines in this poem, the poet says that he travels from country to country and wanders some places in order to get some new words, and after that they are very ancient and very new. They live in the bare hidden away and in the budding flowers. And in the following lines from what a great language I have to the they swallowed up everything. In these following lines, the poet says that all the words were, some of his words were gathered from his journey, and the word gather its meaning through long journeys from country to country, and that carry the inherent of ancient culture and history. And also he says that he is so proud of the language that inherited, according to him, from the brave Spanish conquerors of Mexico and Peru. So he says that he found some words, or gathered some words from his journey, and all these words also are gathered or taken from some brave Spanish conquests of Mexico and Peru. So in these lines we get some form of words he used in this poem. So they swallowed up everything, religions, pyramids, tribes, and just like the ones they brought along in their huge sacks, wherever they went they raised the land. So this is regarding the conquerors, or especially the Spanish conquerors of Mexico and Peru. He says that wherever they went they raised the land, but words fell like the pebbles out of the boots of the barbarians, out of their beards and their helmets, their horseshoes, luminous words that were left glittering here. Our language, we came up losers, we came up winners. So this is very important thing in this poem. This is the last portion of this poem, in which he says that all these words, some of his words were gathered from his journey, and also some of his words were also gathered from the Spanish conquests of Mexico and Peru. And he says that wherever they went, especially the Spanish conquests, they raised the land, and also the words fell like pebbles out of the boots. Very figurative language is used here, in which he says that the words fell like the pebbles out of the boots of the barbarians, in which out of their beards and their helmets, their horseshoes, luminous words that were left glittering here. So all these words were gathered from all these things, and he especially from the conquerors of the Spanish conquerors of Mexico and Peru, and he beautifully says that, or use some figurative language such as the fells like pebbles out of the boots of the barbarians and such other things, in order to get some beauty to his words in this poem. So in the last 4 lines he says that we came up losers, we came up winners. So he says that the two parts of his life, in which he came like a loser, later he became a winner, or came as a winner, and they carried off the gold and left us the gold. They carried everything off and left us everything. They left us the words. So regarding this Spanish conquerors, he says that they came up like losers and then came up as winners, and also they carried off the gold and left us the gold, and they carried everything off and left us everything, and the only thing that they left is that they left us the words. So this is the last line of this poem, in which the poet says that these conquerors, after all the conquering or all the activities in the Mexico and Peru, these Spanish conquerors left us some good amount of words in order to use in the poetry. So he beautifully says that, or beautifully writes about these words, in which very figurative language, he used very figurative language in order to describe these words, like the pebbles out of the boots and out of their beards and their helmets and such other words. So all these things gives a clear idea regarding how he used the words in his poetry. So in this last portion we can say that he brings the memory of his great ancestors who struggled to build up a civilized culture, and of these after these struggles they paid special attention to literature and arts, and also the luminous words were left here, and they carried off the gold and left the gold. The gold means here the glittering words. So the poet uses the gold in order to give a significance, or in order to symbolize the glittering words, and for the future generations. So these great ancestors of this, especially from the Latin America, they left some beautiful words, and these words are recognized as the glittering words. So in the poetന്റെ അവസാനത്തെ ലൈനിൽ പോയിറ്റ് പറയുന്നത് എന്താണെങ്കിൽ, പോയിറ്റിലെ പൂർവികന്മാർ, ഗ്രേറ്റ് ആൻസസ്റ്റേഴ്സ്, കുറേ നല്ല എമൗണ്ട് ഓഫ് വേർഡ്സ് അവർക്ക് കൊടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ഈ വേർഡ്സിനെ ഈ പോയിറ്റ് പറയുന്ന ഗോൾഡ് ആയിട്ടാണ് കാണുന്നത്, ലൈക്ക് എ ഗ്ലിറ്ററിങ് വേർഡ്സ്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ ഗോൾഡ് കൊണ്ട് ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്ന ഗ്ലിറ്ററിങ് വേർഡ്സ് എന്നൊരു അർത്ഥമാണ് അവിടെ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. ആൻഡ് അറ്റ് ദി എൻഡ് ദി പോയിറ്റ് സേസ് ദാറ്റ് they carried off the gold, they left the gold, which is the glittering words, for the future generations. So all these words were helpful for the future generation in order to write the poems and some literary writings. And also he believes that, which is the last line, that the words are the gift from the great ancestors. So he firmly believes that all these words, all these contributions are gift from the ancestors, and with that note the poems end. So the poem is very typical in nature, in which he uses some figurative language, he uses some good amount of words, beautiful words, and some his experience while writing these poems, and how he gathered the words, and also the poem is written in the free verse. So we cannot see the rhyme scheme or such other metres and rhythm of this poem. Only we have some figurative language and also some beautiful words and meanings, and such some lines are very meaningful in this poem. And the last line is very important, in which they left us the words. So it simply means that the grand ancestors of his age or the Latin America, they give from all the great ancestors, they give a good amount of words as a contribution to the literature. So this is regarding this poem. We will analyze the poem in a very good manner in the next class. So go through the poem, the textbook page number 13 to 15, and try to read the poem and bring the textbook as soon as possible. So that's for today. So see you in the next class. Happy learning. Thank you.